Our discussion will be mainly concentrating on some student-friendly teaching methods, especially, the term experiential learning, competency-based testing. So all these topics, we will just, these are all the topics which we can discuss several days together, but we will just have some look into these concepts or these terms today. Now I'll show you two pictures, teachers. Please just see carefully. Actually, a mother bird normally brings, some hard grain or some other hard food materials like an insect or something like that. The mother doesn't give that grain or that insect directly to the mouth of the baby bird. What the mother bird does is, it keeps that grain in its mouth for some time, maybe half an hour or 1 hour. The grain will be there in mother bird's mouth, mixing with the saliva. So what happens is that hard grain or that hard insect mixing with the saliva of the mother bird becomes soft, and it becomes suitable for the baby to digest. So only after preparing that food digestible for the baby bird, the mother will feed it to the baby bird. So whenever we introduce a concept, whenever we introduce a subject, this should be our strategy. We have to make that concept or that topic very easy and digestible for our children. For that, whatever needed, instead of saliva, we may use so many other techniques like a story or like a description of an incident or a brainstorming session or something like that. We do it and we make that content very, very easy, very soft, highly digestible. Economics is a subject which cannot be memorized. See, if you swallow as it is, what will happen? It won't get digested. Food, for example, you don't chew it. You are just like swallowing it. It won't get digested and you will be getting stomach upset or other health issues and all. The same is true with economics, The children cannot swallow economics as it is. That means they cannot go for that remote, rote memorization or something like that. The rote memorization will not do. It will not get digested. They have to put it in their mouth, they have to taste it, they have to enjoy it, and they have to digest it. Then alone the subject becomes interesting for them. They will be comfortable with learning the subject of economics. So initially, whenever we introduce a concept, that should be our strategy. We have to make the concept as easy as possible for our children. We have to make that concept digestible for our children. And the moment they learn it, the moment they digest it, we should ask them to explore more. That is what the second picture signifies. We should ask them to make inquiries. We should ask them to go for extra learning. As this bird is, mother bird is kicking the baby bird out. We have to ask our children to go for further learning. See, already the concept is understood by them. They have digested it. They know it very well. Now they are in a good position to explore more, to learn more, to relate it with the real life situation, and to reach the higher levels of learning in that particular concept. I think my way of interpretation and your way of interpretation are almost the same. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So this should be our strategy. Now let's come to this term experiential learning. Can you tell me what is experiential learning? Mostly science subjects, experiential learning is very important. They have laboratory experiments. Any theory or any law, they can take the children to the laboratory. They can conduct some experiments in the laboratory and prove it in front of the children because they are dealing with physical objects. Can we do such experiments in economics?
Yes, sir. We can take the children to the market, sir.
No, I am asking about laboratory experiments. Is it possible?
Laboratory.
No. See, physics, chemistry, biology and all, you can go for laboratory experiments. Am I right?
No, sir.
We cannot, because here we are not dealing with the physical objects. We are dealing with the what are
Human
we dealing
behavior.
with? Human behavior. Human behavior cannot be tested in a laboratory. It cannot be put into a test tube or anything like that. But at the same time, we have many other ways of going for experiential learning. So what is this experiential learning, teachers? Do you have any idea regarding that? Let's see the definition of the term experiential learning. It's an engaged learning process whereby students learn by doing and by reflecting on the experience. It's nothing but learning by doing. You learn by doing. You know that learners are of three types. Can you tell me what are the three types of learners?
Listener, observer.
Yeah, some are actually auditory learners, we know. Auditory learners learn by listening. In most of the classrooms, we follow this technique, you know, we give a lecture on the topic, our children listen to us and they learn by listening to us. And some learn by visualization. Am I right?
Yes,
we
sir.
try to give them some visual experience. You know, for that we use pictures, we use some videos, or we use some diagrams or some charts, something like that we use. They are called visual learners. And the third category is called kinesthetic learners. How do they learn? Kinesthetic learners are actually the people who learn by doing. They learn by doing actually. So learning by doing, that is what we call experiential learning. What are the benefits of experiential learning? Can you tell me? What are the benefits of learning by doing? So what Sir said is children understand better. That's true. Confucius, you all know about Confucius, the Chinese philosopher. He once said, we hear, we forget. We see, we learn. We do, we understand. We hear, we forget. We hear something, you know, after a few days, we may forget it. We see, we learn, or we believe or we learn. But when we do, we actually understand it. So it's easy for children to understand. Any other benefits of experiential learning or learning by doing? Let us use the term learning by doing. Any other benefit, any other advantage?
By doing, they are getting lot of experience. For that, merits means they themselves, they have to rectify all the mistakes. So
yeah,
I did this mistake.
Yes, trial and error method can be used. Am I right?
Yes.
They may make mistakes, and from mistakes we learn more. Actually, you know, defeat is the best teacher than successor. Whenever we lose, we learn more than what we learn from our success. Okay, children might make some mistakes. From that mistakes, they learn. That is another important point. What Sir said is, you know, children will start loving the subject when they learn by doing. Because children always like to do something, because they always have extra energy. You know, normally children do not like to sit in one place and listen to a lecture. Even we don't like, am I right? Sitting in a classroom for 1 hour, listening to one person's lecture, normally people do not like actually. Then even we, the grown-up people, do not like. Then what about 16-year or 17-year-old children? They normally do not like to sit and listen to a teacher for beyond a time. See, for some time, maybe for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, they may concentrate, they may listen to us. But after that, they want to do something, because children are full of extra energy, surplus energy. That energy has to be used either for mental work or for physical work. So experiential learning will help them to do something and use that extra energy. So learning will become interesting for them. They will start loving the subject. Anybody else? Any other benefit of learning by doing or experiential learning? Teaching is one of the best ways to learn. I too used to advise my children to teach in front of a mirror. Any concept, you know, the children can teach in front of a mirror. Thereby, they can identify what are the drawbacks or what are the limitations, and they can take steps to overcome that. Okay. So let us just summarize what are the benefits of experiential learning. First one, students can better grasp concepts. Understanding level will be higher. They can easily understand because they are involved in it. They are a part of the learning process. So what will happen? They understand the concepts very well. Second one, they have the opportunity to be more creative. They do something their own. They contribute something their own. Creativity is nothing but a person making something new, something of his own or something of her own. So when an activity is carried out, each child can come out with their own opinion, their own views, their own ideas, and those ideas can also be utilized. So creativity will be developed among our children. They have the opportunity to reflect. What does reflect mean here? They have an opportunity to reflect here means they have an opportunity to analyze. See, a concept is introduced. You have carried out an activity on the concept. The next stage is you make an analysis and you draw conclusions. So children get an opportunity to go for analysis. And students' mistakes become valuable experiences. This we have already discussed. They learn by committing mistakes. Let them commit mistakes. We don't expect a perfection from students. Say they are doing a project work. We don't expect a perfect project like a research project and all from them. Something their own they do. Of course, they make mistakes. From that mistakes, they improve. Teachers often observe improved attitude towards learning. Children develop a positive attitude towards learning. They become better learners. They become more interested in the subject. In fact, if you are able to carry out more activities in the class, the students will be waiting for your class. Okay, third period, it is economics. They would say, let us wait. Now they wait for the PT period, we know. Am I right? Actually, mathematics teachers are disliked by the students mainly because mathematics teachers mostly take away the PT periods. Of course, they have a lot of content to teach. So in our school also, mathematics teachers will be borrowing PT periods. This the children do not like because they are waiting for PT period because PT period is activity period. That is the reason they like PT period because PT period is activity period. So if economics period also can become an activity period, at least a part of the economics period can be an activity oriented period, children will love your subject. So better understanding of concepts. Children can be creative. Children can analyze. They make mistakes and they learn from their mistakes and they develop a positive attitude, a good attitude towards learning. Learning becomes very interesting for them, very easy for them. Now, let us take one or two concepts and see how activities can be carried out there. I'm just taking the chapter budget. I hope you can see my PPT.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Just a minute. Can you tell me how will you introduce the topic budget to your children? Anyone? Say, introduce.
It begins with their family itself, sir. Begins with
Yeah,
family.
you can
Family.
start discussing a family budget. Am I right?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, even the
Say,
pocket money they receive.
okay, very good. I used to ask them questions like, who takes financial decisions in the family? Different families, it is different. Am I right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
I used to tell them some families are like Kashi, Varanasi. Some families are like Madurai, and some families are like Pazhani. What makes the difference between these three places?
Maybe a male or female, that is mother or father, right?
Actually, in Kashi or Varanasi, Kashinath or Lord Shiva rules, the father rules. Madurai Meenakshi rules, the mother rules. And Palani, the son rules. So different families can be different types. You know, in some families, the father takes the financial decisions. In some families, the mother takes the financial decisions. In some families, the son takes the financial decisions. And there are some families which are democratic, where the father, the mother, the son, the grandfather, the grandmother, all of them sit together and discuss the family matters and prepare a family budget. So we can ask the children to prepare a family budget, can't we? As an introductory activity. As an introductory activity, can't we ask the children to prepare a family budget and can't we conduct a discussion on that?
Yes, sir. We can
Yeah.
do.
Yes, sir.
I
But,
will just, yeah, tell me, sir.
Yes, sir. First, I will give a small difference between a family budget and government budget, because in family we will prepare budget
Yeah,
based
no,
upon the income.
sir, one second, sir. That you can do it at the end, no? After discussing family budget, after discussing the government budget, you can ask the children what is the difference between these two. Instead of you telling the difference. Actually, the teacher has to be a learning facilitator. We should not give them information. We should make them come out with the information. That will become, you know, that is what we call Socraterian method. You all are aware of Socrates. Do you know how did Socrates teach his disciples? Did Socrates teach anything to his disciples?
I'm not sure about that, sir.
He never taught anything to his disciples. He would ask questions, that's all. Daily, he would give some questions to his students and he would leave them free. You go anywhere, find answers to these questions, then come back to me. So students will think, sit somewhere and think, or they will travel here and there, trying to find answers to the questions which their master gave to them. And after some time, they will come back to the master and they would say, this is the answer to the question which you have asked me. Then Socrates would have a discussion on that answer. This is one way of teaching, Socrates we call. So as far as possible, make the children come out with the answers. You know, as you rightly said, there is a difference between family budget and the government budget, but that we can ask the children to tell us after completing the chapter or towards the end of the chapter. Okay, now I'll just show you a family budget. See, this is annual budget of a household. Salary 8 lakhs. The family gets some business income around 11 lakhs. Interest earned from the bank, they have some fixed deposit or something like that, 80,000. Income from rent is around 3 lakhs. So this is the family's revenue. Revenue side is completed. Total income is 22 lakhs 80,000. Then comes expenditure, home loan installment around 6 lakhs. Most of the families, you know, have housing loan. Housing loan interest has to be paid. So annual payment will be around 6 lakhs. School fees 1,20,000. Grocery expenditure, one of the biggest expenditure, it is around 2,50,000. Electricity 70,000. Birthday celebration 3,000. Birthday cake and other related expenditure. Insurance premium 25,000. Taxes 2,60,000. Travel expenditure around 2 lakhs. Phone, mobile, internet expenditure nowadays very important actually, 42,000. Household expenses, other household miscellaneous expenditure 2 lakhs. So altogether 18 lakhs 70,000. So what kind of budget it is? What type of budget?
The family
Surplus
budget
budget.
is based on the income, sir.
Surplus budget.
It's a surplus budget.
Budget.
Yeah, because the revenue exceeds expenditure.
Yes.
So can't we arrange a budgetary discussion in the class? Family budget discussion.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, one or two people or 2 or 3 people can prepare a budget and they can have a discussion. You know, each and every item they can discuss. See, rent, can't the rent be increased? How much increase can be there in rent? So some kind of discussion on how the revenue can be increased, or some discussion on how the expenditure can be reduced. So something like that, a discussion can be conducted. So this will become experiential learning. Children carry out an activity. So after the discussion of a household budget, we can even go to the budget of a firm. You can ask them. They are all commerce students. They have studied business studies. They know about different types of firms. And they know about the revenue and expenditure of different types of firms, which they are already learning in their business studies and accountancy. So you can even ask them to prepare a budget of a firm A, company A's budget. Here I have given a model budget. Sale of goods manufactured. Company will be producing the products. By selling that, they get around 11 lakhs. Sale of goods traded 20,000, sale of supply of services 52,000, some other income 18,000, 11 lakhs 90,000 is this firm's total income. Expenditure, if you take cost of raw materials 2,57,000, purchases of stock in trade 2,23,000, change in inventory, change in stock, it is around 12,000, employee wages 1,42,000. Managerial remuneration 1,27,000, payment to auditors 8,000, insurance expenditure 21,000, power and fuel 8,000, depreciation and amortization 22,000, other expenses. So totally 8,40,000. This is also a surplus budget. We know 3,50,000 surplus is there. So these two budgets you can discuss in the class. One group can prepare a family budget. Another group can prepare the budget of a firm, and there can be a discussion on these two that will become a very good introduction for the subject. So we are conducting an activity and we are drawing the children to our subject, and we are creating interest in the subject in the minds of the children. And moreover, children understand that this is a real life experience. Budget is not something which is there in the book alone. It is something which is being practiced in everyday life. So we can just create that awareness in the minds of our children. Then we are coming to the subject, government budget and the economy. We have to introduce the word budget. How do you introduce the word budget? Anybody knows the etymology of the word budget? How this word originated?
Small bag, basket.
Yes, yes. Actually, in the book, they don't give us the etymology of different words. But if you can give how a particular word originated, you know, the children will become more interested in the subject and they will link it to the history. For example, another example I'll tell you. You take the chapter banking, money and banking. Some sound disturbance.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Sir, when you are talking, please unmute and talk. Okay. So what I'm telling you now, if you can just speak to them about how that word originated, you know, that will create interest. For example, you take bank, money and banking, we have a chapter. Can anyone tell me how did the word bank originate?
It's from bench, sir. Banco, bench.
Okay, okay, very good, very good. You are absolutely correct. Actually, in ancient Greece, we all know that ancient Greece is considered as the cradle of all modern civilizations, because all modern civilizations developed in ancient Greece, and most of the modern sciences also developed in ancient Greece. So in ancient Greece, there used to be weekly markets. Nowadays, in our places also, we have weekly markets. So in weekly markets, the money lenders used to come with a small bench in their hands. and they will keep this bench under a tree. They'll keep this bench under a tree, and behind the bench they would sit and they would carry out their lending activity. The traders will come, traders will borrow money, and by evening these traders will return the money with interest. Mostly, you know, this daily lending. Morning they will give loan. By evening, after doing all the trading activities, you know, the traders will earn some profit and they will come back. They will pay the money back along with the interest. And that bench is called, you know, it was called bango in Greek language. And it is from the word bango that the word bank originated. So this, when you are introducing the subject banking, you know, if you can tell this story, children will become interested. And one more interesting thing is there. Have you heard about bankrupt?
Yes, sir.
Who is a bankrupt?
The person who is getting a loan from a lot of people who are getting loan from the bank and they are not paying it proper to the bank. So bank is unable to pay the money to the depositors. So on this situation, the bankrupt situation will create.
Okay, sir. Good. Anybody else who is called a bankrupt? Who is called a bankrupt? Sir has said a reasonably good explanation. Anybody else?
The person who is not able to pay all his debts from his earning.
Yeah. See, bankrupt is a person whose liability has become several times more than his assets. And he is unable to clear the liability. Suppose my liability is very high and my assets are very low. I can give an application to declare me bankrupt. If the court declare me bankrupt, I need not clear my liabilities, but my assets will be taken over by the court, and the court will try to settle the liabilities as much as possible. How did the word bankrupt originate? Put such a story, questions to your children. You may have one or two children who would come out with answer also. Some are having some extra reading. How did the word bankrupt originate? Any idea, teachers?
No, sir.
It also originated from the word bango. Suppose a money lender's business collapse.
Yes. That is from Latin word, I think so, sir.
No. If the money lender's business collapse, if his liability becomes several times higher than his assets, what he had to do during those days was to break the bench in front of the public. And if he break the bench in front of the public, he is known as one who broke the bango, that is bankrupt. So bankrupt is a person who broke the bango. So he will be considered as a bankrupt person by the public. The government authorities will take over his assets. His liabilities will be cleared by the government authorities. So such a small things, you know, if you can just make an inquiry before you introduce a concept, you can just type in the Google etymology of the word dash. You will be getting, you will get some stories also. So such stories, such incidents, if you can narrate to your children, your subject will become more interesting and your children will become more interested in the subject. See, if you take a budget, as ma'am already said, it originated from the French word baguette. I don't know whether the pronunciation is correct or not, because it is a French word, which means leather bag. So a bag was used by the British Chancellor of Exchequer. The finance minister is called Chancellor of Exchequer. He used to bring the budget papers in a leather bag. So it is from that leather bag, you know, the word budget originated. In French language, the leather bag is called baguette, and leather bags were used by the English chancellors of Exchequer to bring the budget papers to the parliament. our Nirmala Sitharaman also used a leather bag to carry the budget papers. Earlier, they used to bring a suitcase, actually, the earlier finance ministers in India. You might have noticed that. But Nirmala Sitharaman, she brought a leather bag in order to bring the, the budget papers to the parliament. Maybe she wanted to do justice to the name of the budgetary papers. Okay, I hope it is clear. So this origin can be discussed. Then what is a budget actually? You already know, I don't want to explain it. You're all economics teachers. It's an annual financial statement of estimated income and expenditure of the government during a financial year. So how much the government is planning to collect and how much the government is planning to spend during a given period of time, during a financial year. That is what we call a budget. Then we go for three different types of budget. You already know it. We have the balanced budget, where the estimated receipts and estimated expenditure are equal. Both are balanced. No surplus, no deficit. Then we go for surplus budget. Here the expenditure is greater than the revenue. Estimated receipts, receipts are greater than the expenditure. Estimated receipts greater than estimated expenditure. We call it surplus budget. Then we go for the deficit budget, where the expenditure is greater than revenue. Here you can put a question to them. Which budget is best for a developing country like India? A brainstorming question.
Deficit budget, sir.
Can you explain the reason? Why do we say that deficit budget is good for a developing country like India?
Yes, because of as a country, you have to take a more initiative to develop the nation, sir. To like infrastructure, education. So such a way they have to spend on more. So that is what they have to estimate how much expenditure on to develop the human.
Sir, can you just tell me how will a deficit budget stimulate economic growth? It's a brainstorming question which you can ask to your children. Give them even 1 day time, as Socrates used to do.
Okay.
Next day, let them come out with the answer.
Okay.
Anybody? How does a deficit budget? See, what Sir said is absolutely correct. For a developing country like India, deficit budget is the best one. We need to go for deficit budget because it will stimulate economic growth. How does it stimulate economic growth?
So it's based upon on what we are spending the amount.
Okay.
So
no, you just explained to me. Think that we are all students. Just tell us, how will a deficit budget lead to economic growth?
There are two ways are there. One, we have to reduce the expenses. Another one is we have to increase the revenue.
Then it becomes surplus. Then it becomes surplus budget, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
We want a deficit budget.
Sir, shall I?
Please, ma'am.
Sir,
Please,
for deficit budget, it is usually that the expenditures are more than the revenue. Expenditures, whose expenditure? It is government expenditures. Government expenditures can be in the form of construction of road, infrastructure, which in turn bring about economic development for the people. So,
okay. To some extent, you are okay, ma'am, but not completely.
Okay, sir.
Anybody else? Connect it with the Keynesian theory and try to explain. Connect this with the Keynesian theory and try to explain.
Government intervention for balancing the aggregate demand and aggregate supply.
This is multiplier effect we had explained, right?
Okay, you please explain.
Actually,
you connect it. You please try to.
I will tell you. Actually, deficit budgeted government outflow will be more than inflow. So what happens actually, government is spend more money for infrastructure development. When government spend money, that money will be again reinvested by some other agencies actually. Okay. So multiplier effect theory can be applied and more income will be generated in the economy.
Very good.
Government initiate and the rest will be done by the market.
Excellent. Anybody else? You are very close to the answer, sir. Anybody else?
Yes, sir. Deficit budget, sir. That is increasing the government spending on infrastructure and investment to that is they're welcoming that foreign investment to in our nation. When they're going to some other country going to invest it on our nations, will get a good infrastructure. With the seeing that some other going to also introduce to invested in our country.
Very good.
Through that way, we are going to get employment opportunities. When we are creating the employment opportunity, the income will be rise. So when it is income will rise, the standard of living also to be increased. So such a way is every activity is interconnected with that, because of when the our country is means our budget is going to start with the deficit budget. It is indirect. That means what directly involved in that economic development, sir.
Okay, sir. Good. Now, let me tell you, please listen. Anybody else want to say, or shall I go on? Okay. Say, deficit budget actually means governmental expenditure is very high. Revenue is less. Governmental expenditure is very high. You have to understand that government's expenditure is people's income. Government's expenditure is people's income. For example, if government spends say 10 crore to construct a bridge, where does that 10 crore go? It will be divided into rent, wage, interest and profit, and it goes into the hands of the public. So when government is spending 10 crore goes as income to the public. So whenever government spend more income is generated in the economy. If more income is generated, what will happen? Consumption increases. As people's income increases, their consumption increases. When their consumption increases, naturally aggregate demand increases. When aggregate demand increases, the producers will increase production. Producers are waiting for the demand to increase. If demand is high, producers will utilize more resources. More people will be employed. They increase the production. GDP will increase. Gross domestic product will increase. More employment opportunities will be created. So economy goes to the developmental path. So more expenditure by the government actually means more income generation among the public, because governmental expenditure is people's income. So when people's income increases, people's consumption increases. When people's consumption increases, aggregate demand increases. When aggregate demand increases, the producers will increase production. They will employ more people. They will employ more resources. They will increase production. GDP increases. GDP, you already know, it is the money value of goods produced. So when more goods and services are produced, GDP of the country increases. When more people are employed, unemployment problem reduces, economy reaches economic development. So this is how deficit budget stimulates economic growth. You are all very close to the answer. So we have to just connect this topic with the Keynesian theory, then we will be able to answer. Some of our children will be able to come out with answer. When I asked this question in my class, after 2 days, I gave 2 days time for children to find answer. One student came out with almost the correct answer. So such brainstorming questions can be given, from whenever you are teaching a concept, try to give some questions. Let there be some takeaway for the students actually. The subjects should follow them. They should not leave the subject in the class. They should not leave the topic in the class and go home. It should follow them. They should keep on think about that and they should come out with the answers. Is my answer acceptable?
Sir,
Yes,
for a
sir.
certain extent only.
Why?
Deficit budget doesn't mean that full money government spend for the public. So government spend money for defense purpose, spend money for loan repayment, spend money for interest payment. Okay. So in such a case, it won't work.
Yeah. Say defense, you are telling, even defense also income is generated, sir. You are paying the soldiers. You are paying the companies which are manufacturing defense equipments. There the workers are employed. And when you are paying interest, that interest also goes to the public only. Of course, if you have borrowed from international agencies, that is
Yes.
different. That
International
is
agency.
different. But domestically, if you have borrowed and if you are paying interest or if you are repaying the money goes. I'm not telling that, just because of deficit budget, a large scale economic. No. It stimulates economic development. Army expenditure, defense expenditure also, money is going to the public only. Soldiers are also from the public. They send the money to their families. Their families' consumption expenditure increases. And defense equipments we are manufacturing within our country also. And there the workers are employed. There the income is generated. Okay, so to a large extent, when the government is spending more, automatically more income will be generated. I hope it is acceptable. Of course, economics, always you can have different views. I do respect to the different views. But this is one reality actually. That is why most of the developing countries are following deficit budgets. They don't go for surplus budget or they don't go for balanced budget. They go for deficit budget because deficit budget leads to economic growth. So such questions, please try to give to your students. Then we are coming to these objectives of budget. It leads to economic growth, stability, managing state-owned enterprises, growth with equity, proper allocation of resources. So here also you can put questions to your students. How does or how can you make use of budget for economic stability? Teachers, can you tell me? It's there in our book. What is economic stability? When do you say that an economy is stable?
When we don't have much fluctuation in the money circulation.
Yeah, absence of much inflation and deflation. Am I right? We don't have inflation, we don't have deflation. The prices are almost stable. In that situation, we are having economic stability. How do you use budget for economic stability? Ask questions to the children. Don't give answer. Let them come out with answers. Anybody?
Sir,
When the income of the people increases, automatically the stability will grow.
Now, my question is, how can you
Yes.
make use of budget for economic stability?
sir. So before introducing a budget in front of the parliament or in front of the public, the finance minister should assess the what condition is going on, whether it is inflation or deflation. Okay. If inflation is going on, and what government has to do, government has to cut down all the spending, and the government should go for surplus budget.
Very good.
Got it? On the other hand, if it is deflation situation, there is
Can you tell me why should the government go for surplus budget if there is inflation?
I will tell you, if it is a deficit budget, what happened in the government, the outflow will be more than inflow. And how much money government collect from the economy, and more than that government spend to the economy. So what happened, the situation will be worsened.
No, sir, my question is, how does a surplus budget reduce inflationary tendencies?
Surplus budget means government take away the money from the markets. That means
very good.
through different taxation, through different government take away when government take away the surplus money, the inflation will be reduced.
Again, the linking points you just tell. Students should understand only when you say the linking points. Money supply reduces, then what happens?
Then the inflation will be reduced, and there will be.
How? There is a linking point, sir, please. Anybody?
Taxation, through taxation.
See, what SAR said is absolutely correct. Government
Yes, sir.
collects more from the public, government spend less, money supply falls. What will happen when money supply falls?
Disposable income of the people.
Sir, people's purchasing power will be reduced.
Yeah, consumption reduces.
Purchasing power. right?
Purchasing power reduces, consumption
And
reduces,
disposable income
aggregate
reduces.
demand reduces, then inflation will be reduced. See, when money supply falls in the economy, purchasing power falls, as Sir rightly said. When purchasing power falls, consumption falls. When consumption falls, aggregate demand falls. When aggregate demand falls, inflation will be controlled. Because inflation is caused by higher aggregate demand. When aggregate demand is greater than aggregate supply, it leads to inflationary tendency. So that linking point, if you can correctly say, the students will understand. And what should we do during depression if the economy is in a deflationary situation? What kind of budget? Just opposite. We go for
Deficit budget.
deficit budget.
Increase
Yeah.
money supply.
Government will be spending more, government will be collecting less. And as one ma'am rightly said, the disposable income of the people will increase. When disposable income of the people increases, the consumption expenditure will increase. When consumption expenditure increases, aggregate demand will increase. When aggregate demand increases, deflation will be controlled. So in that way, you know, like linking on the backboard, you can link it and say, children, some children will come out with answer. We can have discussions on that. We have to just put brainstorming questions to them. Socratarian method will be very, very effective if our children are ready to think, analyze, and come out with the answers. Now you take this one, proper allocation of resources. Can you tell me, how does a budget help in proper allocation of resources?
So that
Yes, yes. Sudarshan sir, please.
Sir, so that is the main concept in a budget. So how much we are allocating, or for what we are allocating, how much we are allocating. So based upon that, so for what we are giving importance first. So for example, we have in these three sectors of what we are following the sectors. In the sectors, for which sector we are giving more importance, as like our 5-year plan. So based upon the availability of resource, how we are going to use that resource.
Sir, one point is, you know, one point is most of the economies in the modern day world are capitalist in nature. Even Indian economy is turning towards capitalist model. In capitalist model, resource allocation is done by private individuals, mostly by private individuals. The governmental allocation is very limited if you compare with the allocation of resources by the private individuals. So how can budget influence resource allocation by the private individuals also?
Sir, may I?
Please, sir, please. Tommy, sir, please.
Yeah, so yeah, allocation of resources, you know, budget, the taxation is a tool coming under budget.
Yeah.
You know, income tax, for example, income tax, what the government is doing, government collect money from the rich people and distribute the same money to the poor people in the form of, you know, what do we say,
Subsidies.
Subsidies and everything. And that is an example of allocation of resources.
Sir, that comes under reducing economic inequality, sir.
The resources
To reduce economic inequality.
Government does not allow the resources to be concentrated on a particular hands, actually. Okay, take away from the resources from the rich people and distribute to the poor people.
Sir, that point is correct for equity, to reduce the gap between the rich and the poor. My question is, allocation of resources, how budget can be used?
Allocate, what are, for example, to increase employment opportunity, to increase the production. For example, Khadi industries, they are allocating more resources. For cigarettes, those products should come to the economy. So that industry, the government increases the taxes.
Excellent, excellent. You are right, ma'am. What ma'am said is absolutely right. See, in budget, government imposes heavy taxes on dangerous goods, harmful goods, and luxury goods. So on dangerous goods, harmful goods, and luxury goods, heavy taxes will be imposed. So what will happen? Cost of production will be very high. If cost of production is very high, the producers will be reluctant to produce those products. On the other hand, necessary items taxes will be very low. So producers will be motivated to produce the necessary goods. So most of the resources in the economy will be diverted towards the production of desirable goods or necessary goods, and less resources only diverted towards the production of harmful and dangerous goods. You may have different opinions. This is only theoretical aspects. In reality, it may be different, because this dangerous and harmful goods will be sometimes highly priced. If it is highly priced, even if the cost of production is high, the producers might produce it. But theoretically, we can say that in the budget, government will impose heavy tax on rich man's goods, heavy tax on cigarettes, heavy tax on liquor and other dangerous goods, other harmful goods. So what will happen? Producers will be reluctant to produce them because cost of production is very high. And theoretically, if cost of production is high, profit will be low. If profit is low, the producer will not be motivated to produce those goods. So their production will fall. So lesser resources are allocated for their production. Whereas necessary goods, taxes will be less, subsidies also will be given. So when subsidies are given, taxes are low, cost of production is low. If cost of production is low, your profit is high. So you will be motivated to produce those products. So most of the economy's goods or resources will be diverted for the production of socially desirable goods. This is what we call proper allocation of resources. More resources should be allocated for the production of desirable goods, necessary goods, and lesser resources should be allocated for the production of harmful goods, dangerous goods, luxury goods. So budgeting can be used as a tool for that. So these are all, the objectives of budget. This we can teach it in the form of a discussion, an activity. You can arrange an activity in the class. Children will come out, or you give them questions. Give them 1 or 2 days time. Let them think. Let them come out with their own answer. Let them discuss. And at the end of the discussion, you can drag them. You can take them to the correct explanation that will stay in their mind forever, because they have learned it by their own experiences or experiential learning. This is the most important aspect of the budget, actually, the structure of the budget.
Revenue received neither creates any liability nor reduces assets.
Yeah, no liability, no reduction in assets. Correct, no, like taxes, non-tax revenue, all those things. You are not borrowing, so no liability, no need to repay. And your assets are not reduced. That is called the revenue receipts. What is capital receipt?
Either it reduces assets or increases liabilities. Like borrowing.
Either your liability will increase or your asset will be reduced. For example, you are taking a loan. You have to repay.
Yes.
Your liability increases. Yes. Or you are
Yes.
selling out some governmental property, disinvestment. Your asset will be reduced. Similarly, revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. What is revenue expenditure?
The expenditures which does not reduce my liabilities are neither it increases my assets or
Yeah.
revenue expenditure.
No asset generation, no reduction in liability. No asset generation, no reduction in liability. Give examples like giving old age pension, giving widow pension, or giving scholarship. All these things will come under that. Whereas capital expenditure,
Either it increases assets or it reduces liability,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Construction of railway track.
yes. Governmental investment, say government is constructing a bridge or a factory or something, it is capital expenditure because asset is generated. Or government is repaying the loan, it reduces the liability. So naturally it is capital expenditure. So after discussing all these things, can't you ask the children to prepare a budget for an imaginary country? And can't you organize a budgetary session like a parliament session?
Sure, sir, we can proceed.
Yeah, budget is called a money bill. I think you know that. And what is the speciality or what is the difference between a money bill and an ordinary bill? Political science, we learn it. What is the difference between a money bill and an ordinary bill? It has nothing to do with economics, but we are just connecting it with the political science.
Usually bills are given after the act is done. In budget, we are giving it before. Is it so?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Actually, money
Bill is-
bill may be passed by,
Ah.
so in parliament we have two houses, sir.
Mm.
So money bill is passed by a Lok Sabha, and other bills, Rajya Sabha, participation of Rajya Sabha is also there, but
Very
the
good,
main
very
part
good.
is
So money bill is a bill which is connected with the revenue and expenditure of the government, and money bill has to be passed only in the Lok Sabha. It need not be passed in the Rajya Sabha. It is sent to Rajya Sabha only for its recommendation. So Rajya Sabha can give its recommendation. The recommendations may or may not be accepted by the Lok Sabha. Even without accepting the recommendations given by the Rajya Sabha, the Lok Sabha can proceed with the money bill. So anyway, you can organize a budgetary session in the class. I'll just show you a model government budget. See, this is a government budget, a model government budget. Receipts are given on the left-hand side and the expenditure are given on the right-hand side. And the receipts are divided into revenue receipts. Revenue receipts, we already know. No liability is generated or created. No asset is generated. Totally, it comes to 10 lakhs, no? 10 lakhs. So 10 lakhs is actually the revenue receipts. Revenue receipts is divided into tax revenue and non-tax revenue. Tax revenue is listed: corporation tax, personal income tax, wealth tax, customs duties, excise duties, service tax. So two types of taxes there. What is a tax, anybody? What is the definition for a tax?
Tax is the compulsory contribution levied by the government to the people.
Yeah, it's a unilateral payment. Unilateral payment means one-sided payment. We don't get anything in return. See, I pay tax, I don't get anything in return. Okay, so two types of taxes we know: direct tax and indirect tax. All those differences children can understand from this. Then non-tax revenue: interest receipts, fees, user charges, dividend from PSUs. Then capital receipts. In capital receipts, recoveries of loan. Suppose we we gave some loan and now we are getting it back. Disinvestment, total receipts is given 10 lakhs, 50,000. So this is actually the receipts. Children can prepare their own. You can, if needed, you can give them a model and ask them to prepare their own budget. They can add more content to it. Then expenditure aspects, if you take revenue expenditure, interest payment, payment of salary, payment of pension, other revenue expenditure, then capital expenditure, repayment of debt, the repayment of loan because it reduces liability, other capital expenditure, total expenditure. Now, how to finance? It is a deficit budget, we know. The deficit is almost 2,50,000. But at the end, this deficit has to be overcome. We always follow double entry bookkeeping principle. It has to be balanced. So what does the government do to balance it? Government go for deficit financing. Deficit financing means the steps taken to overcome the deficit. It can be by borrowing. So domestic borrowing will be there. External borrowing will be there. In this example, domestic borrowing is around 2 lakhs. External borrowing is around 50,000. Total borrowing 2,50,000. Deficit is 2,50,000. So borrowing is also 2,50,000. So ask the children. You can give it as a group activity instead of giving it as an individual activity. Give it as a group activity instead of giving it as an individual activity. Children will do it and arrange a budgetary session. Pass the budget, 3 readings it has to go through. So that creates interest in the subject. And after all these, you can also arrange an activity like a discussion on the latest union budget. Latest union budget. So children should be able, after studying this chapter, our students should become capable to analyze a budget presented in the parliament by our union minister. Then alone our teaching will become effective. For that, similar activities can be organized. Now, this I have given as the steps that have to be taken. Group activities, mostly, it is better to have group activities. You can arrange a discussion on the latest union budget. Money and banking chapter, if you take, a number of activities can be arranged. In our school last year, we arranged an exhibition of currency notes and coins. Many of our students have the collection of coins and currency notes. Stamps, coins, currency notes, collections they have. If you just ask them to bring one fine day and exhibit in the hall, it will become an activity. So exhibition of currency notes and coins. Children will be able to see the currency notes of different countries, the coins of different countries. They will be able to compare the value of different currencies, and they will be able to discuss the reasons why some currencies value is higher than that of others. So such discussions after an exhibition can be arranged. Interaction with a banker. If you just request a nearby bank manager to come to your class and interact with your students. You see, it is very easy actually. If you just go to a nearby bank, meet the manager and speak to the manager, sir, I just want you to come to my school and have an interaction with our students. They won't say no. We arranged a session this year actually. SBI manager, the local manager, he came to the school. He had an interaction with the commerce students. They asked several questions connected with the banking. So practical aspects and theory aspects are totally different. At least the children will be able to come to know about the practical application of this theory when they are interacting with such people. Barter system can be presented in the form of a drama. Dramatization can be done. So money and banking, several such activities can be arranged. This is another activity. I'm just going a little bit faster because our time is almost over. Balance of payments account of a country. After teaching this chapter, foreign exchange and balance of payments, you can ask the children to prepare balance of payments account of an imaginary country and have a discussion on that. For that, the model can be shown to them. There is another activity which can be carried out. Another one, students may be assigned the task of collecting exchange rates for a period of 1 month. Say dollar and rupee exchange rate. For 1 month from the newspaper, let them collect information. After a month, they can analyze why the rupee value has gone down. Why rupee depreciated in relation to dollar? What might be the reason? So such discussions can be arranged in the class. Indian economic development aspect, if you take, we arranged a visit to an organic farm. And our children interacted with the farmers. If you just look outside, if you make an inquiry outside, you will find some people who are practicing natural farming or organic farming. If possible, arrange a field trip, because we have organic farming as a part of rural development chapter. So to create interest in that topic, if possible, a field trip can be arranged. You can take your children to an organic farming. They can interact with the farmers. How organic farming is done. What are the benefits of organic farming? How it benefits the farmer. Whether his income is higher in organic farming or in chemical farming. Such questions can be asked to them. And children can gain knowledge from that. So arrange a field trip. debates can be arranged. One important topic is economic reforms, liberalization, privatization, globalization. Two different views are there. Or demonetization, debate can be conducted. Demonetization, even now it is debated in the economy, in the country. Impact of British rule, positive impact, negative impact. Subsidies, are subsidies needed or are they not good for the economy? Divide them into groups. Let them take up the topic. So such debates can be arranged. Textual content can be transformed into the form of a story. You can give a content to the children, any content, ask them to prepare a story based on that. Let them narrate that story. Storytelling is also one skill, one talent. So such activities can be arranged. So these are all various activities, role play, seminar, project-based learning. All these things can be carried out in a classroom. Now, one of the most frequently talked about topic nowadays in the educational sector is competency-based questions. Can you tell me what is this competency-based questions? Anybody? What do you mean by competence? We will end up in another 5 minutes. Don't worry. What do you mean by competency-based questions?
So the questions which check their learning process, how much they learn on the topic. So,
okay, good. Anybody else? What is competency-based testing or competency-based questions? Say, traditionally, the questions used to be the one which tests the knowledge of a person. Am I right? Traditionally, some 5 years back or 6 years back, board question papers, if you take, most of the questions will be either testing the knowledge or the understanding.
Understanding, sir.
Yeah, but present day questions are testing the skill of the children. Knowledge is less important. Skill is more important. What skill? Skill to apply knowledge in real life situations. How to use knowledge in real life situations. See, we learn many things, but we don't know how to use it or when to use it. For example, all of us have learned a plus b the whole square is equal to a square plus 2ab plus b square. We all learned it in our classes, lower classes mathematics. How many of us know where it has to be applied? It is taught to school level children. That means it should be useful to school level children. Am I right? Did we anytime use it in our life?
No, sir.
No,
the same
not at
question I
all.
am also having, sir.
Yeah, we never used. Or we learned Akbar's reforms. What way it benefited us? Or we learned trigonometry. In class 9, 10 and all, we learned trigonometry with great difficulty. Lot of beatings also we got from our mathematics teachers those days.
Yes, sir.
Where did we use it? In what way it became useful to us? If we see our mathematics teachers, we have to ask, ma'am, you taught all these things to us. See, actually, they should have taught us how to use these things in our real life situation. Correct, no? One very good example I will tell you. I forgot the name of that girl. One Smith it ends, that girl's name. A British girl, class 9 level girl, grade 9. She was on a tour to Thailand. She was on a tour to Thailand along with her family members, father and mother. And they were in a beach. They were enjoying in the beach along with the several other foreign and domestic tourists. So when they were in the beach, they heard a news that a high intensity earthquake occurred somewhere in the seabed near to Thailand, near to Indonesia. a high intensity earthquake occurred. The moment this girl heard this news, she recollected what she learned in her geography class. What did she learn? If a high intensity earthquake occur in the seabed, that will lead to the generation of gigantic sea waves. And these sea waves will come to the coastal area and will cause large scale destruction of men and property. She recollected, she connected this geography knowledge with the news which she received. Immediately she informed her parents. She informed her father, see, this beach will be attacked by gigantic sea waves within half an hour or so. So it's very dangerous to be in the beach. We have to move away from the beach. The father informed the guards there, and they passed on the message to everybody who was enjoying in the beach. They all moved away from there. They all moved away. After, say, 1 hour, the entire beach was devastated by the tsunami waves. See how that girl's ability to apply knowledge to real life situation saved the lives of hundreds of people. This capacity, even the experts in India did not have. In Indonesia, when the tsunami waves attacked, if warning was given in Chennai, no destruction would have been caused in Chennai. But our people, our meteorologists, didn't give any warning to the Chennai people. Actually, after Indonesia only, the tsunami attacked Chennai. At least when tsunami attacked Chennai, if they gave a warning in Cochin and other coastal areas in Kerala, people would have been saved there. Even when Chennai coast was attacked by tsunami waves, no warning was given in the western coast. It's because of their lack of competency. So competency-based questions are actually the questions which will test the skill of the students to apply knowledge in real life situation. The questions that test the analytical skill of the children. See, a table is given and they are asked to analyze the table, particularly, class 12, the comparison between India, Pakistan and China, mostly a tabular question will be asked. And children have to compare, children have to analyze, children have to draw inferences. That skill they need to have. Questions that test the ability to draw inferences from statements and tables. Paragraph-based question. Class 12 level, they take paragraphs even from the newspapers, Economic Times and all. Connected with the content which they are learning in the school. So children should be able to analyze that. They should be able to draw inferences. Questions that test the ability to compare, comparison. So how can you develop all these skills among your students? Anyway, in the coming examinations, at least 40% of the questions are going to be competency-based questions, dear teachers. So knowledge and understanding will help them only up to score up to 60%. If they want to go beyond 60%, they must have the skill to apply knowledge in real life situation, the skill to analyze, the skill to draw inferences from statements and tables, the skill to make comparisons and derive conclusions. How are you planning to develop these skills among your students? How can skill be developed? You take any skill. How can skill be developed?
By practice.
By doing themselves.
Yes, by practice. Skill, for example, cycling, swimming, speaking. These are all skills. They can be acquired only by practicing. You read a book on swimming, say 1000-page book, how to swim. You memorize, you jump into a river. Will you be able to swim? No, you have to practice. So knowledge is not sufficient, practice is needed. there only experiential learning becomes more important. You need not give separate practice to these questions. You arrange activities. You give them brainstorming questions. Have debates, have discussions. Your children will develop the competency and they will be developing the skill to analyze. They will be developing the skill to apply knowledge in real life situations. They will develop the skill to compare. They will be able to analyze the statements, assertion, reasoning and all. It's analyzing the statement. First finding out whether the statement is correct. Next to find out whether the second statement is supporting the first statement. That skill has to be developed. Question papers, 5 years back, a question paper, if you give to your students, they will say that it is damn easy. But present day question paper is much more tougher. The reason is 5 years back, a question papers tested only knowledge and understanding. Whereas the present day questions are testing competency, skill. So please try to organize as many activities as possible. Connect your subject with the real life situations. Follow the experiential learning so that your children will be able to face the challenges which are laying ahead of them in the board examinations. Already NEP, New Educational Policy, says that competency-based testing will be given more importance.